Hello and welcome to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Thanks so much for being here with us on this day after Thanksgiving here in the United States. If you're not in the United States, everyone in America is recovering today. And it's a great day. The day after Thanksgiving is one of the greatest days of the American on the American calendar because the refrigerator is full of leftovers, and the dishes are clean now. At least probably most places, the dishes are clean now. Not everywhere. Maybe not at my house. I don't know. But you get to just enjoy those leftovers and recover from giving thanks to God because we give thanks with such enthusiasm here in the United States. I have no idea why, but giving thanks involves eating pumpkin pie and apple pie and turkey and stuffing and watching football. And I'm sure God is feeling good about it today, that he got thanked so heartily yesterday by all of America. But I love this day because it's a nice day to relax. It's a family day. It's usually a lower key family day. And lots of good stuff happens on this day around America. And we'll have a little bit of a lower key show for you today because we know that you're still digesting a lot of what went on yesterday. And so we're going to have a 2 hours of wonderful conversation about film. We'll talk about some of the movies this year. We'll talk about Christmas movies. We'll talk about faith in the movies, all of that. And we have a wonderful guest to help us do that on this day after Thanksgiving. Andrew Petiprin is our guest. He's a former Episcopal priest and the author of a book called Truth Matters, Knowing God and Yourself, and some forthcoming books that I do want to talk about this hour. He came to full communion with the Catholic Church with his wife and children on January 1st, 2019, and he's a lifelong Christian, a Marshall Scholar at Magdalen College in Oxford from 2001 to 2003, and a former fellow now at the Word of Fire Institute. Andrew Petiprin, thanks for being here with us.
Glad to be with you, Cy.
The book I really want to mention is Popcorn with the Pope, A Guide to the Vatican Film List, which, as far as we know, is out today. You could probably go to the Word on Fire website or to Amazon and get it today. We're not absolutely sure, but it's probably out today.
It is out, and I want to recommend it to everybody. It's a wonderful little book. I worked on it with two co-authors, David Paul Baird and Father Michael Ward. The three of us collaborated on this book that is, I think, unlike anything people have seen, but I think something people are going to want to snap up. It makes a great Christmas present, especially for people who like movies and who take their faith seriously. And what it's about is this thing called the Vatican Film List. A lot of people don't even know that it exists, but in 1995, Pope St. John Paul II, or people who sort of worked for him at the Vatican, issued what was then just called Some Important Films. It was just a sheet of paper that said Some Important Films, and it had 45 movie titles on it. And the movie titles, some of them are very familiar. Some of them are things like The Wizard of Oz, It's a Wonderful Life, 2001: A Space Odyssey, popular movies like that, Chariots of Fire, those kinds of popular movies. But some of them are very obscure. They're European movies, they're foreign films, but they all have a great deal of theological, philosophical, moral, just kind of inspiration embedded in them. And it's a really cool moment for the church, which if you dig back a little bit in history, just in the 20th century, the popes were really wrestling with what to make of film as an art form. And
given what was being put on film, there's that seems like a perfectly good thing to be wrestling about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Pope Pius XI was actually the first pope to really have to confront the problem of the potential that film could corrupt, that you can put visual images on the screen in a more powerful way than had ever been possible in the history of art. And so he was really wrestling with this in the late 1920s and early 1930s. But you fast forward a couple of decades to Pope Pius XII, and he realizes by this point that film is not just a diversion, that it isn't just a bread and circuses kind of situation. It isn't just something that people are going to engage in for their basest, entertainment experiences, although they can certainly do that.
Right.
So he begins thinking. He gives this great speech to a group of filmmakers, and he lays out a series of principles that he called an ideal film. So right there in the 1950s, you see the church like really beginning to take very seriously the potential for film to edify and actually to embrace some of the deepest questions that we need to think about in our faith. Fast forward another 40 years, we get to John Paul II, whom we know was an artist himself. He was an actor. He wrote plays. He loved art. And there in the 1990s, he issues this, or his people issue this list of films. Now, it's been around for a long time, this list, and people have known about it. And every once in a while, if you kind of Google it or do a little internet search, you'll see that people have commented on it here and there. I've done a little bit of that myself. But there's never been, in the English language anyway, a comprehensive book, a commentary on each of the films that's pitched to a popular audience. And so this is the project that Father Michael Ward and David Baird and I embarked upon, that we wanted to put in the hands of people who liked films and took their faith seriously, a guidebook. And it's full of really beautiful color still images from the films, and these essays that we've written along with study questions in case some groups want to use it, maybe for like a film club, like a Catholic cinema club.
How cool.
Yeah, so it's just a really wonderful book. I'm really proud of it, and I definitely would just encourage everybody listening to go to Word on Fire or wherever they get their books and pick it up.
Sounds like a perfect Christmas gift, since people are doing their Christmas shopping now, for that Catholic film lover in the family. Popcorn with the Pope, A Guide to the Vatican Film List. Now, you said it started out as a list of 45 some important films. Is it still 45, or I assume they've maybe added some films to it since then?
Amazingly, they have not. They have not added anything. It's frozen in time, 1995. And you just think of all of the films that have been made since 1995, which could be on that list. Now, some of them, there might be some discussion, some controversy about what films might make it on there. But it's been a wonderful period of cinema. And there's some of us out there who really hope that sooner or later the Vatican might create an addendum or a second part or something so that we can see what else we should go and watch.
Well, you would think Pope Francis would. He's all about this engagement and with the culture and all that. Come on, Pope. I'm snapping my fingers to get the Pope moving. He responds to that. I don't know why. Let me just ask you this. Some important films, 45 films, middle 1990s. Any Elvis films on there?
No.
Not a
no
single Elvis film. Really?
No Elvis films. I'm sorry to say, no Doris Day films. No, none of those. But there are some popular ones. Wizard of Oz, as I mentioned before, but not some of the real pop culture ones.
Okay, so since it's the day after Thanksgiving, let me just ask you about Thanksgiving movies, because we are going to talk about Christmas movies. Always, is it still this way? Actually, you know a lot more about movies than I do, but is it still the case that it used to be kind of like there were summer movies, there was Christmas movies, and then there was just kind of everything else? Is that still the case, that the summer blockbuster, the big Christmas movies, and then there's everything else?
Those are kind of the two big marketing categories for movie theaters. I mean, they definitely want big summer blockbuster movies, action films, superhero films, all that kind of thing. And then there's kind of the holiday season, as they call it, of the kinds of movies that you're going to take the family to go and see when you have a little bit of free time, when you're taking some time off. But, in terms of like the themes of the movies, there are like real summery type movies for sure. And there are really Christmassy movies. There's so many Christmas movies, as we know. But there aren't a lot of Thanksgiving movies. There are a lot of scary movies, and we can put those maybe in the category of like Halloween movies. There are a lot of those. But funnily enough, for as important as the Thanksgiving holiday is to American culture, there aren't a ton of movies that really highlight the importance of Thanksgiving in the lives of Americans. There are movies that have scenes that feature Thanksgiving. I mean, even a movie like Rocky, for example, has a significant scene set on Thanksgiving. There are various movies that have scenes set at Thanksgiving, but the movies aren't really about Thanksgiving. So it's interesting to find the few that are out there and see what they're like.
All right, well, we have to take our first break, and we will do that when we come back. We'll take a look at some Thanksgiving movies, and then we're definitely going to talk about the movies of this year. Some fascinating conversations to come from Andrew Petiprin as we go. But I don't want to give the impression that we're going to do a comprehensive, these are all the films that are coming out at Christmas time that you can see. We're probably not going to do that, although I will ask you some of what's coming out. But we'll review some of the big movies of the year. It's even better, some important films from the year. None of them involving Elvis Presley. We'll be right back and continue our film conversation from a faith perspective with Andrew Petiprin on Catholic Answers Live.
Catch Catholic Answers Live anytime at Catholic.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
Check out EWTN's official YouTube channel.
Just follow the link on our homepage at EWTN.com or go to YouTube.com/EWTN.
Watch EWTN's live shows or today's homily from the Daily Mass.
Click the upload button to see our most recent clips.
You can also find all of EWTN YouTube content by clicking the playlist button.
It's all on the official EWTN YouTube channel at YouTube.com/EWTN.
Visit today.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Andrew Petiprin, our guest. We're talking about faith and film on a nice day to do that, a day where we get to relax a little bit more. Hey, maybe you're driving and you're catching us and you've never caught us before. A lot of times this is the first time people get to hear us is on a holiday like this because you're not at work like you usually are. And I just want to let you know, you can find out all about us by going to Catholic.com. Catholic Answers Live is a production of Catholic Answers, which is an apostolate devoted to explaining and defending the Catholic faith. It's in Southern California. And we'd love it if you'd get to know more about us. Maybe we'd get onto your podcasting list for this show or one of the other podcasts that we do. Go to Catholic.com to find out all about it. Andrew Petiprin has written a book called Popcorn with the Pope, a guide to the Vatican film list. It's out. It has no Elvis movies in it, but it's still a really, really good book. Did you maybe think of just getting some pictures of Blue Hawaii and putting them in there? Because they're beautiful pictures.
Yeah, we thought maybe just putting Elvis on the cover would be like Elvis shaking the hand of the Pope or something like that might have been the right move, but we couldn't get the rights, so we didn't do that.
It never happened. You know, Elvis never toured in Europe. Did you know that?
I know. Well, I know that from watching the Elvis movie, actually, that his, that dastardly Colonel Parker kept him from his dream of touring the world.
Yeah, that's right. Colonel Parker, Tom Hanks. I don't know who that guy was that played Elvis, but he did a good job in that movie.
I thought he was Elvis. I just really got mesmerized. I just forgot that I wasn't really looking at Elvis.
Okay, since we're on that, Baz Luhrmann makes these crazy movies with incredible sets and light, and I love it. Is there something wrong with me that I love Baz Luhrmann movies?
No, not at all. I think Baz Luhrmann makes really, really good movies. There are very few directors that make movies kind of as big and interesting in terms of spectacles as Baz Luhrmann. Right. So I think we should be grateful. He's kind of a throwback to an earlier age where filmmakers were making these big, exciting things. And
he's intentionally a throwback because he makes movies about things that happened usually earlier in the 20th century. What was the one with what's the William Faulkner? Not William Faulkner. What's that movie that everybody... Leonardo DiCaprio was in it.
Yeah. Romeo and Juliet.
No, not Romeo and Juliet. No, that's William Faulkner didn't write. That's not even an American author. But I have utterly confused this question now because I completely baffled myself on it. But for some reason, my senior brain cannot focus on it's a movie where a guy, he gets rich, but he's low class, but he...
Oh yeah. Oh, you mean
Oh, did I do it?
yeah,
I gave you
The
the
Great
mind
Gatsby.
virus.
The
The
Great
Great
Gatsby.
Gatsby. I thought, now, who forgets The Great Gatsby? That's how old I am, Andrew. I can't even remember The Great Gatsby. I loved that movie. I thought he did a great job with that movie. Fantastic.
Yeah, the look of that movie is really something. I think it really captures the spirit of the jazz age.
Yeah. All right. Well, okay. I don't know why I got off track, but that's not hard to do with me, especially talking about movies. I like movies a lot. I like going to the movies. There's no one in my family. My wife and I raised 3 children, and none of them enjoy going to the movies with me. Maybe it's me. I don't know. But I love to go sit in a movie theater and watch a movie.
I do too. I'm really hopeful that movie theaters are going to continue to exist and thrive. I know we have so many options for watching movies at home now, but I just don't think there's anything like the experience of going to the movie theater. And, I've noticed, I don't know if you have too, Si, that a lot of big movies that are coming out are being presented. They're being kind of advertised as you need to go to the movie theater to see them, because it won't be the same experience if you just try to watch it at home.
Right.
And I noticed this summer, one of the movies we might talk a little more about was Mission Impossible, and Tom Cruise came on the screen along with the director Christopher McQuarrie at the beginning of the film and basically said, "You've come to the right place. You've got to watch this on a big screen. Thank you. We made this movie so you could watch it this way."
Good for
and I thought
them.
it was great.
Yeah, that is
great.
good. And we are going to talk about that movie. We're going to talk about millions of movies with you. I hope you're prepared to discuss millions of movies.
I've seen a couple million, so yeah,
You've seen a
we
couple
can do
million
that.
movies? Good for you. That is good.
Well, I doubt that very much. No, I have not.
Did you ever see anywhere Elvis plays a race car driver?
I think so.
How about a water skier? How about a surfer?
Yeah.
How about
yeah.
He did all of these things.
I know. I forget the names of all of those, but I think we have a box
He forgets
set
the
of
name.
those
He forgot
DVDs.
the name of them as soon as he made them, but they are good. All right, I want to ask you about Thanksgiving movies, but before that, okay, parents watching movies or sending their kids to the movies used to have. I think it was called the Legion of Decency. Do we have that anymore? Is there anything like that anymore?
The Legion of Decency, as it once was, doesn't exist anymore. It stopped rating movies officially back in the early 1980s. However, there are still through, I forget what it is. I believe if you check out the National Catholic Register, there are through there you can look at the kind of suitability of films. They're not rated in the same way as they once were, as being kind of condemned or as the old system was set up. But there are still places to go, actually, including if you go to IMDb, the Internet Movie Database, and you look up specific films, it will tell you specific things that you might be worried about. Like it will tell you the kind of nudity that there might be, or the kind of foul language that might be, like more than just the blanket, rating. Yeah. So there are places to go so you can find out whether a film is really right for your family.
Yeah, because have you ever gone to like a PG movie or a PG-13 movie and you're like, that's what they think a kid should watch? Sometimes
weird.
you're like, what are they thinking? All right, I want to talk about a particular movie that was condemned by the Legion of Decency, and it makes me miss the Legion of Decency because they did such a good job in their evaluation of movies. They condemned Miracle on 34th Street, which clearly should be a condemned movie. I don't even know why we keep prints of that movie around.
Yeah, that's a funny one, isn't it? Miracle on 34th Street, which is an interesting film. It is, first of all, a Thanksgiving film because it begins at the New York Thanksgiving Day parade, but then obviously turns very much into a Christmas movie. And I remember watching that movie many times as a kid. It was just on TV a lot, and there's kind of a sweet ending. But my understanding is it was condemned by the Legion of Decency for a couple of reasons. One is that the protagonist of the film, who's played by Maureen O'Hara, is divorced. And at the end of the movie, we presume, gets married to Mr. Gailey, the male lead in the movie, and there's no talk of kind of the religious significance of the fact that she's divorced, and So I think that's one of the reasons. One of the other reasons may just be that the film itself is just so focused on Santa Claus and not really on anything else related to kind of the faith importance of Christmas. Mm-hmm. That movie came out in 1947, so it may just, some of the films on the list are kind of strange choices, and there must have been a lot of both human strength and human error that went into evaluating what should get that C rating, the condemned rating. But Miracle on 34th Street got one. Nowadays, it's actually not one of my favorite Christmas movies anyway. I don't love that movie, but I am a little nostalgic for it from time to time because I did watch it a lot growing up.
Yeah, I have to say, I remember watching it growing up, but I have not had the feeling of I got to go back and revisit that movie. But and I don't know about kids. Like, can you show kids black and white movies, or do they just feel like you're torturing them if you show them a black and white movie these days?
Well, I'm pleased to say I have evangelized my children
Good for
the
you.
love of black and white movies. But I'll tell you, Si, when I spent a few years as a high school teacher, and I used to show my students movies, and if it was black and white, it didn't even occur to me that they would object to it. But if it was black and white, the first few times I did that, I mean, they just all moaned that they couldn't even believe it, that they would be subjected to something like that.
Isn't that amazing? It's
Yeah.
amazing to think of that the technology goes along, and at a certain point, a thing is just marked as this is did Shakespeare make this himself? Like, this is ancient. Like, how old is this?
Right.
By the way, if you're a young person, there are some truly great movies that you will love if you watch them in black and white. All right, let's talk about some Thanksgiving movies since it's the day after Thanksgiving. By the way, you're trained in theology and all that. Are we actually thanking God when we're watching football and eating pie? Like, what's the relationship here between thanking God and watching football and eating pie?
Well, I think leisure is good. We work for the sake of being able to enjoy the gifts that God has bestowed upon us. So I think Thanksgiving and its aftermath are potentially very good for us to have an opportunity to rest from our labors and to give thanks for the gifts that we have. I think it gets a little dangerous if we are maybe turning to consumerism, or if we're just kind of, maybe using the time that we have off to maybe avoid having even more special experiences that we could be having with our family. If Dad's just kind of all by himself, ignoring the rest of the family while the Cowboys are on, that might be a problem, but might not be. Maybe
Wait,
Dad deserves a break in the chair, right?
The Cowboys are. What are you talking about? Like, what? Wait, so I'm not supposed to. All right, parenting is hard, man. All right,
Yeah.
But, the other thing though is I say that I love this day because it's that it really is that the feast was yesterday. And there's a kind of enjoyment of the post-feast glow or whatever. But this is actually not a day that a lot of people enjoy because they have to work today. We've made it so that lots of people have to go into work on the Friday after Thanksgiving. And then we do this Black Friday thing. Is that and that's kind of like it's like Hunger Games for cheap TVs.
It is. I love the day after Thanksgiving, and I think everybody should have it off or take it off, because in our house anyway, we work really hard. My wife, loves to cook, and she puts on a really beautiful Thanksgiving dinner for family or friends every year. And I don't know about you, Si, but I mean, as the man of the house, that's a lot of dishwashing for me. A lot of cleaning up, a lot of garbage.
I
that has to be
start
taken
early,
out.
man. I do it in shifts. I'd like, okay, this is the first stuff. Get this done because there's going to be
But I need a day to recover. I mean, I enjoy Thanksgiving once we get to the table, but boy, I'm exhausted by the end of that day. It's a hard working day.
Yeah, that's actually true. That's true. It is a busy, hard working day. And then, a lot of times, I was going to make a dumb joke. I'm not going to make a dumb joke. All right. So the day after Thanksgiving, however, we might consider watching those Thanksgiving movies. So give me a couple of like really good. Do you have a couple? I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you have a couple of really good things that were not condemned by the Legion of Decency?
Yeah. Well, honestly, if you do a search for Thanksgiving movies, it turns up a lot of movies that I at least have either never seen or never heard of even. But the one that I would highlight is called Planes, Trains, and Automobiles from 1987. It was not condemned by the Legion of Decency because the Legion of Decency wasn't condemning movies in 1987. I don't think
falling down on their job, clearly.
Maybe. This movie, though, I don't think is a movie that ought to be condemned, except it has one scene with some cussing in it. Otherwise, it is a movie that is about, it's a very powerful movie and touching movie. It's a hilarious movie. Absolutely roll on the floor laughing, funny.
Well, John Candy, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I love Steve Martin and everything, but John Candy is a miracle. That guy is amazing.
Everything he was in, it just takes it up such a notch as far as humor. And I think this movie might be him at his very best. He plays this traveling salesman who it always seems to be kind of imposing upon people, but in a way that most people find charming and friendly, but not his traveling companion, Steve Martin, who is just trying to get home from New York to Chicago to be with his family for Thanksgiving. And it's kind of a buddy picture in the end, even though they don't really like each other very much to begin. It's kind of a bro film where a couple of guys are on a road trip and every conceivable thing that could go wrong to them does. And yet they are able, not to spoil the movie, but they're able in the end to forge a real friendship, which is rare these days, especially for men. So it's a really beautiful movie. I love it.
All right, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, our first, rent it. You can rent it. Oh, it's probably on one of the services. I don't know where it is, but Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, first Thanksgiving movie suggestion. We'll get at least one more when we come back. Talking about film from a faith perspective with Andrew Petiprin today on Catholic Answers Live this day after Thanksgiving.
Why We're Catholic is the one book you can hand to anyone to invite them into or back to the Catholic faith. With more than 400,000 copies sold, Trent Horn's book has had a #1 ranking on Amazon.com for 5 years running. Now available in softcover, bulk cases, ebook, and on Audible. Find out what the excitement is all about. Order your copies of Why We're Catholic at shop.catholic.com or visit whywearecatholic.com.
When the resurrected Jesus appeared to disciples on the road to Emmaus, they didn't recognize him until the breaking of the bread. The same is true today. In the Holy Eucharist, we really meet Jesus. In The Eucharist is Really Jesus, author Joe Heschmeyer explains how knowing Jesus in the Eucharist is the key to understanding all of Christian faith. Order your copy of The Eucharist is Really Jesus today at shop.catholic.com or get it at a good Catholic bookstore.
If you're not a Bible scholar, the full message of how the Sunday Mass readings fit together can be tough to comprehend. Apologist Carlo Broussard is here to help. Join Carlo every Friday for the Sunday Catholic Word podcast. In each episode, he unpacks the scripture readings for that Sunday and brings them all together so you can better understand and defend the faith. Visit SundayCatholicWord.com to subscribe. That's SundayCatholicWord.com.
Are you scared to talk about abortion? Don't worry, almost everyone is. You can overcome this fear as Trent Horn shows in the newly revised and expanded second edition of Persuasive Pro-Life. With a little knowledge and a few proven techniques, you can become a bold and effective apologist for life. Visit shop.catholic.com to order your copy of Persuasive Pro-Life and never again be afraid to speak up. Also available at good Catholic bookstores. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. We're kind of taking it easy today. I hope you're getting to take it easy. I think there was a wave of businesses being opened on the day after Thanksgiving. I think that wave is receding a little bit because people got negative feedback on it. But I know there are a good number of people who do have to work today, and sorry about that. It used to be better here in America as far as I don't know, man. Work. That's what we're about, and I'm sorry that some are working today. But if you get to be with us, we're glad, first of all, that you get to be with us. If you don't know about us, you can find out about us at Catholic.com. What Catholic Answers is an apostolate about defending and explaining the Catholic faith. But we're going to take it easy a little bit today and just talk about movies. And we're having fun talking about movies with Andrew Petiprin, who has a new book out. You can get it at Amazon or on the Word on Fire website. It's called Popcorn with the Pope, A Guide to the Vatican Film List. We've already established, so don't call and ask, please, if any Elvis movies are on there. We've already established there are none. But no list is perfect. Let's just leave it there. No list is perfect. Right now, we're just taking a little discursus to talk about Thanksgiving movies, and the only American Thanksgiving movie like that you really feel like it's just a Thanksgiving movie is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
I think that is a great example of a movie that is about Thanksgiving, whereas a lot of movies have little scenes of families around the table or something like that, but aren't really essentially about Thanksgiving. So honestly, that's the only one I've got to pitch to you is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
But I know you have another movie you want to talk to us about, because I asked you about feasting and relaxing and all that, and I know because I have it right here in front of me that you also want to talk about this other movie, which I think it's one of the top 10 movies ever made. I think it's one of the greatest movies ever made. But do you know what movie I'm talking about?
I'm not sure. I can't remember which one.
Blue Hawaii. Elvis's Blue Hawaii. Babette's Feast. I'm talking about Babette's Feast.
Yeah, let's talk about Babette's Feast. So that movie, the reason that I forgot about that one is that it's a Danish movie. So it has nothing to do with American Thanksgiving, but it is all about Thanksgiving. I mean, the movie is about a feast. It's about gathering a group of people together and serving them the greatest dinner of their life. And the result is a truly transformative experience. Now, the neat thing about it is it's not about Catholics at all. In fact, it is about Christians. They're very faithful Protestants. But the meaning that you take away from the movie couldn't be any stronger, that it's about a sustenance that is given to us by God that is greater than any food that we could eat in this world, namely the Holy Eucharist and the body and blood of our Lord. The character who's kind of the catalyst for this in the movie is the woman who prepares the dinner, this woman Babette, who is French, and therefore she is Catholic, we presume, and she wears a crucifix, but she doesn't really talk about her faith. But she comes to work for these Danish sisters who are very dour, very serious. They have nothing fancy at all about their lives. But they reluctantly let Babette, who wins the lottery, use her lottery winnings to put on this lavish feast for them. And so it's kind of, in a way, I mean, you can look at it almost like a Catholic is given the opportunity to evangelize some Protestants in her town.
It is kind of that, yeah.
Yeah, by sort of showing them. But at the same time, it's kind of an ecumenical movie because Babette has been the recipient of a lot of grace from these Protestant women over the years, because she's been allowed to live with them when she needed a place to go. So it's just a gorgeous movie about, and you just come away from the movie feeling so grateful to God for your own blessings. At least I do.
Yeah, and this is one where it comes from a short story, but it feels like something that it's film. Like the some things just work better on the page, and some things work better as film. And this one, because of the kind of presenting the food even as divine, as a window on the divine, as something that opens us up. It allows us to forgive people we couldn't forgive otherwise. Allows us to engage in conversation with people we don't like. Something about film being able to communicate that. It does speak to film as an art form that has its place among the art forms.
I totally agree. I mean, what you can get in a film like that is everything that the beauty of the written word can evoke. If you're reading about a feast, you can almost smell the food, right? But it also is able to evoke what a painting can do. Like if you look at a beautiful still life of a feast, it's right. Mashing the two together and putting it in action. And what you get from it is just a sensory explosion. And I think not in a decadent way, in a way that I think is truly edifying and worth our attention.
Which brings up a basic kind of fundamental question about film, because certainly since the dawn of the film era, where people can go to watch movies, there's been a cultural decline in many ways, and so you when you see a movie like Babette's Feast, you realize what it can be because it has this incredible power to draw you into something that's almost real life. And so the artistic power, but that same power is mostly not used for good reasons.
That's right. Yeah, and this was actually something that Pope Pius XII talked about in the 1950s. There's a line in his apostolic exhortation that he made to these filmmakers where he talked about film as being great filmmaking is suited as a respite from the pressure of real existence. And he wanted filmmakers to really think of what they were doing in their craft as offering to people a place for relief, a place where kind of the horrors and indecencies and evils and all the things that we experience out there in the harsh world, that we can, we don't want to just imagine that they don't exist, but we can transcend them a little bit with the power of art. And so he was really hopeful that film could do that it was uniquely suited as an art form to do that sort of thing for people who were at that time, in the 1950s, that was the entertainment option. That was,
Right.
what you did. I think it's very insightful of him that he pointed that out. I think that power still exists today.
But you're a parent. You've been in church ministry for most of your adult life. How do we confront? And let's be realistic. The truth is that, first of all, many of the images that these motion picture images that people are being exposed to are degrading, not dignifying, like Babette's Feast. And we are, in fact, degraded by them. You can see the evidence of it that from the time the talkies started in 1929 to today, we don't see an edifying of culture. We see a degrading of culture.
Yeah, we do, and we have to be very careful. I think that one good thing is for us to have conversations like this. To know that we are going to be exposed to things on our TV sets or movie screens or whatever it is, and so let's talk about what's worth our attention. The other thing that I would say about that is I recently read this speech that Pope Benedict XVI gave to artists during his pontificate. Now, a lot of people know about John Paul II wrote a document called the Letter to Artists, which is a really wonderful thing to look at. But Pope Benedict also talked about this, and he talked about the power of art to wake people up. And indeed, he even talked about it, that it oftentimes should shock you. Now, he didn't mean it shock you in the sense of like expose you to something that's going to scar you or traumatize you. But there are things that we see that maybe aren't easy to look at or aren't just, just plainly on the surface, something holy and good for us, but they may provoke in us a kind of reflection that is ultimately going to be good for our souls. I think about maybe, for example, a filmmaker like Terrence Malick, or an earlier filmmaker like Ingmar Bergman, a Swedish filmmaker who he made these like very difficult kind of serious movies, and they contain things that are troubling at times. But boy, if you have the patience to get through those movies and can really process them, I think it really can spur some spiritual growth. So, it's a tough question, and I don't have a perfect answer to it, but it's important to be vigilant, but also important to, not just, necessarily live in a cave, I would say.
Yeah, right. Because especially as a parent, because if you compel your children to live in a cave with you, it's not likely that their transition to adulthood will work well. Although I have known parents who I truly admire, who were much more restrictive, for example, than I was, and they were able to make it work. So I don't want to be like, no, you can't, be even very, very, very vigilant with your children, because people can do it. I've seen people do it. I've seen people pull it off, and it was good for their children. But there's some way in which we do also have to be realistic about the world that they're moving into. How are we going to make that possible for them to live in that world?
Yeah, and I think the key, I agree with you, Sai. I don't think that there's a magic bullet there. Like different parents do have different strategies for what they let their children watch. But something that is important to me and to my wife is that we take an interest. And we love movies, we love TV. And so we don't ever want our kids to just be over there watching their thing. Like we always want to be engaged and involved. Now there will be things that they are interested in and we're not really, but we want to make it clear to them we want to be involved in knowing about it. And, I'll ask our kids questions about the shows that they watch, even if they aren't shows that I personally want to watch, and then on top of that is just to always try in your family to bring the question back around to, okay, we're going to spend some, you're going to spend some time watching SpongeBob or something like that. Well, that maybe isn't the most edifying thing in the whole world. Maybe it's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
But that's just a silly example I pulled out of my head. Our listeners probably have better ones. But to bring the question back around to what are we doing when we watch something? Like, who are we as people of faith when we sit down to engage in something, even something silly?
Yeah. I like the strategy. I mean, it's a communicative strategy, not just a disciplinary strategy. I mean, in our house, you could watch anything you wanted as long as it was Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. Do you think that was a good strategy, or do you think maybe that was?
Well, I mean, that's a niche policy, I suppose. As a family, your kids are
pick any show you
want,
want, kids, as long as it's Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. I don't know. That was our. All right, we're going to come back. We'll talk about some of the big movies of this year with Andrew Petiprin, the author of Popcorn with the Pope: A Guide to the Vatican Film Lists. Right back after this on Catholic Answers Live.
This is Archbishop Paul Coakley, the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City, and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Who was the first Catholic in your family? Were they evangelized by a friend, a coworker, a stranger? Did you ever think that you could be that person that God uses to save a soul? And that soul could save their family, their grandchildren, and generations to come. At St. Paul Street Evangelization, a Catholic nonprofit, we train, equip, and mobilize Catholic disciples to do the urgent work of evangelization. Catholic Answers is supported in part by St. Paul Street Evangelization, streetevangelization.com.
He was a Jesuit, a cardinal, and a doctor of the Church.
Matthew Bunson and the Doctors of the Church.
St. Robert Bellarmine is honored for his immense contributions to theology, including helping to draft 2 important catechisms that defended church teachings during the Protestant Revolt. Pope Clement VIII named Bellarmine a cardinal because, as the Pope put it, Bellarmine had not his equal for learning.
For more about the Doctors of the Church, visit doctorsofthechurch.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I didn't know today was the feast day of Robert Bellarmine. I'm so happy to hear that. What a wonderful, wonderful saint he is, and a great intellectual hero. We're talking about film today, and we're talking about it with Andrew Petiprin. And Andrew Petiprin has a new book out called Popcorn with the Pope: A Guide to the Vatican Film List. A perfect Christmas book for the Catholic film lover in your home. You can get it on Amazon.com or go to Word on Fire. Go to their website over at Word on Fire and pick it up there. Andrew, you wrote an article earlier in the year about some contemporary films, and I want to get your take on these films. It's called The Bomb and the Babble of the Self. You published it in the Catholic World Report earlier this year. In it, you focused on 3 movies. Maybe you can just tell us what you were getting at in looking at these 3 films from the year 2023.
Yeah, the 3 films that most interested me this year, Sai, were, first of all, Christopher Nolan's long-anticipated biopic Oppenheimer, which was not without controversy. It's one of those movies that I would not recommend parents show their children. It does have some very objectionable material in it, but it is also, to my mind, a very profound meditation on the hubris that we have as human beings in playing God, in our kind of technological innovation, in progressing to a place where we're now we now really can't control what we have made. we now live in a world where the technology that we have invented to help us now controls us. And the atomic bomb is just a wild invention, a weapon of war. But before it existed, it was the fruit of the labor of the most brilliant minds, scientific minds in the world. And Robert Oppenheimer was among the greatest of these men and women, mostly men, of this generation. And so I think what Christopher Nolan does in the film, in Oppenheimer, is really remind us of the Spider-Man line about with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
Boy, that's just so important. We see this in a movie like Jurassic Park too, where the question is not can we do something, but should we do something? And so important stuff, I think, is really put on screen. I mean, it's just a technically flawless film as well. Just the way the acting from Cillian Murphy and the other actors in that movie, it's really one of those kind of once in a generation kind of big movie. As I said, not for everybody, definitely contains some objectionable material, but it really made a big impact on me this year.
Do you come away from the film, because I have to be completely honest with you, I've yet to see Oppenheimer, and not for lack of desire. I think it's just been a distracting year in some ways, and I haven't made it to a lot of films this year. But I'm a huge fan of Cillian Murphy. I think he's Irish. I think he's Irish. And the Irish, what is it? How they produce these actors who are just amazing.
Yeah.
And I really like Christopher Nolan's films. But do you come away from the film? Is it a message film, or is it a film that doesn't so much give you a message as a kind of challenge, that challenges you to think through something? I guess because I'm not so much into the message films, because I feel like they're just the opposite of challenging. Like, okay, I got your message. Thank you, Barbie.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to mention the horrible Barbie movie, but go ahead.
Right. I don't think it's a message film, and I'm really not interested in message films. To me, the beauty of cinema, like any great art form, is it's able to present things in the complexity that they deserve. Now, of course, we as Catholics can take away certain messages. We can think about things in particular ways, like, that's helpful, that's not, or whatever that may be. But I think to let the art speak for itself is really important. So, no, I don't get the impression watching Oppenheimer that Christopher Nolan is trying to say any one particular thing. It isn't meant to condemn outright the technology that went into creating the atomic bomb necessarily. It isn't meant to condemn outright any military decisions that have been made with that technology since then. It's not really that kind of movie. It's a character study. It's about a man who is sort of driven towards what I think ultimately looks in his life like not a good end. It's an end that almost has a kind of dark spiritual power.
Yeah.
That is something that we definitely all need to look out for in our own lives.
Yeah, that's a very modern thing. I mean, it's almost like the way you speak about it. Like, I think how many modern people must get to the end of our lives and go, why did I live it that way? Why did I do it that way? There's just so many kind of enticing, you could chase your dream of building a bomb or starting a company, but then the why question is going to be there. Why did I pursue that?
One of the characters in the film is Albert Einstein, who tells Oppenheimer during the film something like, you'll get to the end of all of this, and you know what you'll get? You're going to get a reception with tuna fish sandwiches and a handshake, and you'll go home. Like ultimately, what's the reward that we get for the things that we do in this life? Even really important things. So it just kind of, if what you're doing with your time and your talent is creating something destructive, well, your reward for it isn't going to be any different than if you did something, much more modest and maybe good for the world, right?
All right. What about Asteroid City? I did see Asteroid City.
Oh yeah, what did you think of Asteroid City?
I don't know. I have no idea what to think about
Yeah.
Asteroid City. And I feel this very much with who's the man that makes those movies? What's his name?
Wes Anderson.
Wes Anderson. I've seen
Yeah.
other of his films, and I feel like they're very intellectual and they're very distant from emotion, and I don't know what to do with those kinds of movies.
Yeah, they are. Wes Anderson movies are easily caricatured because he has a very particular aesthetic,
Mhm.
and the movies definitely appeal to kind of a heady audience to some degree.
Right.
However, I think that his movies also, especially his earlier movies, have a lot of heart to them. The Royal Tenenbaums, in particular, is a movie that I think is a very profound meditation on family and belonging
Mhm.
and kind of one's purpose in life. Now, Asteroid City is a little bit harder to discern, and I have to admit I had to think about it a little bit before I was able to come up with really what I felt about it. But what I think about it is, and the reason that I put it in the same article with Oppenheimer is, I think it's a very interesting presentation of what life is like now that we live in this kind of scientistic age, where in a sense science, whereas in an earlier age, it wasn't that there wasn't such a thing as science, there was, but that we human beings lived in a more enchanted universe. We understood that we were creatures made by God and that our souls were destined to eternity and that sort of thing. Whereas nowadays we tend to put our trust and our faith even in science itself. And faith is something, religion, Christianity, Catholicism even, is something more personal and private. It's something that just kind of belongs to the individual. And so I think that this film, Asteroid City, does a really interesting job painting the picture of these characters who are sort of lost in the world now. World War II is over. It's set in the 1950s. World War II is over. It's the first, the baby boomers are just sort of becoming teenagers and coming into their own. And they're trying to make sense of what they're on the planet to do. And so these young people in the movie are inventors. There's this kind of science contest that they've entered, and one of them makes a jet pack. One of them makes this thing that can project advertisements onto the moon so people can see them at night. And you get the sense that these innovations, these inventions, are they serve a very practical purpose for a society that's mostly focused on things like wars and making money and kind of creating a condition of maybe creature comforts rather than creating the conditions where a person's soul could find its rest in God. So I found Asteroid City to be not everybody's cup of tea, but a movie that got me thinking a lot about important things.
Okay. All right. Very good. And then Mission Impossible was the third of the three movies from 2023 you thought it was worth talking about.
Absolutely. Mission Impossible was such a blast. I love the Mission Impossible franchise. I happen to be a fan of Tom Cruise as an actor. I know he's a bit odd in his personal life, but he's somebody who understands how to give audiences what they want. And it's not just the cheapest, basest stuff either. There is a lot of fun, a lot of action in all of his films and all the Mission Impossible films, but there's also a lot to think about. And in this one, in each Mission Impossible film, there's some big problem that Ethan Hunt and his team have to solve. And in this one, it's artificial intelligence. And it's the first of a two-part series. There's going to be a second part to this latest Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning film. But I think that this character of Ethan Hunt and this team, this Mission Impossible team, they represent kind of the heroes that we need in this scientistic age. That these are guys who certainly are not adverse to using technology and not averse to kind of even using violence sometimes to protect people who need that kind of protection. But they also are doing it in the service of what I consider to be kind of a noble, greater good, that they are humane people. They realize, in a sense, that what they're doing, their heroics, are about making human beings more human, and keeping us away from kind of these traps that that could suck us in. Artificial intelligence being one of them. I know there's a lot of discussion right now in the world about its uses, its abuses, all of that kind of thing. Maybe I've just seen too many sci-fi films or something like that, but I'm pretty worried about it. I have to be honest. I think that it's one of those things that is just going to contribute to are continuing to lose sight of the gift of our humanity, the gift of kind of living in relationship with other human beings in the sight of God. And funnily enough, this movie that has a lot of motorcycle chases and, just all kinds of capers and disguises and fun stuff, it to me, it spoke to me of just the wonderful thing about being a human. So grateful.
Ah, wonderful. Our guest is Andrew Petiprin. He's got a brand new book out, and you should check it out. It's called Popcorn with the Pope, A Guide to the Vatican Film List. Perfect Christmas gift for that Catholic film lover in your life, or maybe just a film lover who would like to check out what's on the Vatican Film List and see what Catholics have to say about film. We're going to continue our conversation, but we're going to get into Christmas movies next hour. Which ones are good? Which ones are bad? Which ones have secret messages that maybe we're not going to get into the ones that have secret messages that you need to be aware of. I'm not entirely sure if there are any of that sort. I don't think we'll be discussing any of the Hallmark Christmas movies as much as I would like to. I don't think we're going to, but we'll find out next hour. Catholic Answers Live. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host, as happy as can be to be back here with you on this day after Thanksgiving. That's it here in the United States. If you're outside the United States, we celebrated Thanksgiving yesterday, and today we're doing one of two things: relaxing or undergoing the excruciating pain of being at a mall or a superstore trying to get our Christmas shopping done before the prices go back to the normal prices. Those are the two things that we do on this day, but we also get to talk to Andrew Petiprin, who is our guest this hour. He's got a new book out called Popcorn with the Pope, A Guide to the Vatican Film List, and we're going to talk with him about film. This hour, we're going to continue our conversation about film, but we're going to move into some Christmas films. Thus, my current outfit, where I put on my Santa hat for the first time this year, and it's depressing to put on a Santa hat when you put the hat on and you actually look like Santa. I didn't think this all the way through, and now I'm looking at myself in the monitor thinking that is an old, chubby Santa-looking dude with a white beard, and it's exaggerated by the fact that I'm now wearing a Santa hat. So I'm going to be unhappy this entire hour, but I will try to fake being happy. I'm certainly not unhappy about our guest, Andrew Petiprin. Andrew, thanks for being back for another hour.
Glad to talk movies. This is great.
Yeah, where's your Santa hat, dude?
I know, I'm unprepared.
You would
at
least if you wore a Santa hat, you would just look like a person in a Santa hat. I look like actual Santa. Look at that, Andrew.
I don't know, Cy. You need a lot more beard, I think. You don't,
okay, that's the one thing. Okay, you're old enough, you're fat enough, but you just don't have enough beard. That's what you're saying, Andrew. That's what you just said to me. Why are we having this guy on?
Your beard isn't white enough. Maybe I should say that. So I'll save a little face.
All right, whatever. But you like my coat? It's like Santa in a trucker coat, though. It's green though, but it's no.
I like it. Yeah, no, I do. I think it suits you. Yeah.
Well, thank you for pretending like you like my coat. I appreciate that. All right, we're going to talk about Christmas movies. All right. I'm going to tell you something that a famous film reviewer, who I'm not going to name, said to me years ago. This person said, there are no good films about the birth of Jesus.
Yep.
Is that true? There are no good films about the birth of Jesus?
It's really funny, Cy. As I was preparing to talk to you today, I was thinking I should have in my mind a very original Christmas story movie in my head, and I really couldn't think of one. I don't know if I think you're the person you were talking to there is right. I can't think of. I mean, maybe in Jesus of Nazareth, Zeffirelli's a kind of epic movie about the life of Christ.
Yeah.
The scene where Jesus is born is pretty great, pretty powerful. But that's really more of a mini series, and the movie itself is not just really it's not just about Christmas. So I don't think there are very many. No.
That's so weird to think about that. But is it because it's not that cinematic? I mean, I don't know. Like, it seems like you could make it cinematic. I mean, they did with like the Little Drummer Boy, and I'm not going to be an advocate for the Little Drummer Boy, but they made it cinematic by making it not about Jesus, basically.
Yeah.
So what's the deal? Why don't we have a good nativity movie?
I don't know. I mean, maybe part of it is childbirth itself is not the most cinematic thing, Do you want to watch a movie where a woman is having a baby? I mean, my experience being in the room when my wife was having our babies was very powerful. I mean, very, very much so. But it's also, kind of not the kind of thing that we normally see on screen, I suppose. Whereas, for example, in painting, there are lots of paintings of the nativity of baby Jesus with the Holy Family and the shepherds or the wise men or whatever. But that's caught in a moment. That's not, something that's sort of being depicted, happening. So I don't know. That's a good point. I don't know.
I don't know either, but all you filmmakers out there, here's an opportunity. We need a movie about the actual birth of the Savior. That's a good movie. But that's not to say there's not good Christmas movies. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the actual first Christmas, we don't have a good one on that.
Yeah, maybe some of our listeners will correct us. I hope that they do. There are areas.
Well, I'm not giving out the email address. Do you want to give out yours? Because I don't want. No, you can send it to radio@catholic.com. Look, if you think of one, we got a lot of time between now and Christmas. So if you come up with you're like, this is a beautiful film about the birth of the Lord, send it. Well, I want to talk about it on the air. I'll invite you to come on the air and talk about it. If you send me a good one, send it to radio@catholic.com, radio@catholic.com. Okay, so, but can I just ask you a perennial, what's an annual question now about film? Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? I mean, so many people, this has become a big thing to be. My favorite Christmas movie is Die Hard. It's not a Christmas movie. It is a Christmas movie. What is your take, Andrew Petiprin, film expert? Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Die Hard absolutely is a Christmas movie.
Oh.
No doubt about it. For a number of reasons. One, I mean, it's set at Christmas time, and most of the movies that we consider Christmas movies, that's basically the main criterion that we're considering. It takes place at Christmas time, and there are issues related to the celebration of this great holiday that play into the plot, right? That's very much the case in Die Hard. Detective John McClane is trying to fly from New York to Los Angeles to visit his estranged wife and his children for Christmas, to see them and celebrate Christmas. So there's this tension from the beginning. He and his wife are estranged from each other. He's really hopeful that maybe he can win her back by the right celebration of Christmas. But he arrives, and what does he find? His wife is held hostage along with a lot of other people in this big office building by some terrorists at Christmas time. Now, there are interpretations of Die Hard that I think overplay a little bit John McClane's kind of Christ-like status in the movie. But it's worth mentioning, isn't it? This guy whose name is Jay McSee, not JC, but Jay McSee, descends from the sky to save everybody, to save a bunch of people, right?
What?
So that's kind of like the big trope that we can lay on top of how we think about Die Hard. Now, once he gets there, he's shooting Uzis and he's walking on broken glass and he's smashing through windows and, he's using profane language and all that kind of thing. But it's a movie about a guy who saves people, and that's kind of the message of Christmas to some degree.
All right, I'm processing this. The Christ imagery of John McClane. I had not considered that before. Processing. All right, I'll buy it. Okay, so you say Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Is it a good movie or is it a bad movie? Or
I think it's a great movie. I love Die Hard. I think it's one of the all-time great action movies. Bruce Willis has a ton of heart in that character when he plays John McClane. The way that he kind of mentors the other cop, played by Reginald Vell-Johnson from the TV show Family Matters, is really beautiful. There's just a lot of really funny lines that he utters. And ultimately, it's a funny, not funny. I mean, it's a funny movie to some degree, but it's also kind of a poignant movie because although ostensibly it's about these terrorists who take over this building, you find out, played by Alan Rickman, by the way, better known to some people as Professor Snape from the Harry Potter movies. But you find out that he doesn't have any political ideology. He's just a thief. He just wants to steal money at Christmas time. And that's very much a theme that runs through a lot of Christmas movies. The Grinch, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Alan Rickman is basically just the Grinch. He wants to steal Christmas, and John McClane, the do-gooder, has come along to save everybody and stop that from happening.
All right. Well, we settled one now. We'll get into more Christmas movies as we go. We got to take our first break. Our guest is Andrew Petiprin. Check out his new book, Popcorn with the Pope, A Guide to the Vatican Film List. Right back with more discussion of Christmas movies on this day after Thanksgiving in the United States on Catholic Answers Live.
Miss a show? Make sure to catch up by downloading the podcast, available online at Catholic.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
We should pray because prayer is conversation with God, and conversation is the only way to build a relationship. We need that relationship with God. We should pray and talk with God. about what's on our hearts, what's on our minds, what's active in our lives, the joys we have. We should share all of these with God. Prayer is conversation, and conversation is the only way to build a relationship with God. It's the most important relationship. All of our other relationships depend on this one.
Welcome back, Catholic Answers Live. Happy day after Thanksgiving to you. Thanks very much for being here with us. If it's your day off or you're traveling and you discovered us for the first time, I would like to invite you to check us out at Catholic.com. Catholic Answers is an apostolate of lay people in the Catholic Church devoted to explaining and defending the Catholic faith. And this is not typical of what we do on this program. We usually take calls and questions about the Catholic faith, but every now and then we get the opportunity to do something a little different. And this is a great opportunity, the day after Thanksgiving, to just talk about film with somebody who we really like. We really enjoy when Andrew Petiprin is here with us, and to talk about the things we like, which is films and faith, and I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're having a good time enjoying the conversation, because it is a little off the beaten track for us. I won't give out the phone number because we're not going to do calls today. We're just going to enjoy our conversation. We're talking about Christmas movies right now. In the first hour, which you can find on our podcast, or just go back and listen to it wherever, on the EWTN app or wherever you listen to the show, you can go back and listen to it. We talked about some Thanksgiving movies. We talked about some big movies of the year 2023, and now we're talking about Christmas movies with Andrew Petiprin. He has, in the first segment of this hour, committed to the fact that he is in the camp that Die Hard is a Christmas movie, and he says it's not just a Christmas movie, but a darn good one. He didn't use such foul language, but that's what I heard. That was the spirit of the thing. It's a darn good Christmas movie. You want to give us any other Christmas movies, Andrew?
Well, the one that I enjoy watching most nowadays is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. There are one or two objectionable things in that, but I think it is just absolutely hilarious. And I don't know about you, Cy, but as a husband and father, I feel actually a kind of anxiety every year with regard to Christmas, because you're trying to give your kids, your family, a meaningful experience.
Yeah.
You don't want to commercialize it, but that getting the right gifts for your wife, for example, that's important. That being able to kind of be present and to make a memory is something that it's really valuable. Maybe you, like me, have certain kind of images in your head for what Christmas was like growing up. Well, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation is it's hilarious because it taps into all of those anxieties that a lot of us feel in the world today. And it stars Chevy Chase, one of the great comedic actors of a previous era. He's still around. I think maybe not quite as funny as he once was, but he plays the kind of quintessential suburban dad. He works hard. He wants to give to his family, but he finds everything he tries to do goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to engineer the perfect experiences, and everything just ends up going totally haywire to the point that he really just about loses his mind. So I find Christmas Vacation to be just once we're ready to watch that one, and we usually, by the way, Cy, watch it today, the day after Christmas. The day after Thanksgiving. So I expect I'm going to be tuning into that one with my wife and kids tonight. But it's a wild ride. I love it.
If we talked about Oppenheimer, I got the sense that in the way that you described the film, and again, I have to admit that I have not yet seen Oppenheimer, that there's something about Oppenheimer's undertaking to build the bomb being maybe a kind of, not metaphor, but an image of the modern possibility of wasting your life in work that is that's not good for people, or not good for you, or in other ways maybe involves great achievement, but the achievement itself is almost an achievement not worth having. When you talk about this movie as him trying to engineer the perfect experience, that is the modern dilemma. People trying to live their best life are ruining their lives.
Yeah. I think that's right. I do think that Clark Griswold, who that's the name of the character, I think that his heart is definitely in the right place, unlike Robert Oppenheimer, for example. I mean, he loves his wife, he loves his children, and he's proud of his work, but he also clearly lives a life in which his work serves the end of providing for his family and, giving him the means to support the people that God has put into his life. Now, I mentioned God, but God, it's not a movie about a church-going family by any means.
Mm-hmm.
And yet Clark, the opening scene of the film is the family's driving out to the country to find a Christmas tree and cut it down. And Clark is singing Joy to the World. He's singing traditional Christmas hymns. And, you could just chalk that up to, well, he just feels sort of nostalgic, like those are the kinds of songs that you sing for Christmas. But I do think that there's an undercurrent in that film of a man who, he's not a churchgoer, and yet he does somehow kind of unconsciously believe that he's living his life for a greater purpose, namely a purpose given to him by God.
Right.
Now he screws it all up in a sense because it's almost like he's not depending enough on the grace of God. It's like he knows there's God stuff wrapped up in Christmas, but he's the one who feels like he has to do all the work rather than receiving the gifts that come from him, from God. In a sense, like the movie is about a man who needs to learn how to receive rather than give, I would say.
Yeah, okay. That's interesting. But because what the modern person has to learn to do is to receive as well. Like I think that we're so mistaken about this, that we think we have to achieve happiness. We have to achieve our humanity, but really the Christian message is, no, you have to receive it as a gift. And if you can either be disposed to receive the gift or indisposed to receive the gift, but you cannot achieve happiness, you cannot achieve fullness. All of these things are gifts, and take them, and trying to take them is kind of the Adam and Eve problem, rather than receive them.
Yeah, especially for the high achieving types in this world. I mean, there are people who, maybe are a little prone to laziness, who don't have any problem, sitting back and receiving whatever comes their way. But, the types that really want to make a difference in this world, who are really the hardworking types, and that's admirable. We need people like that. But I sometimes say to people who, and I fall into this category too, and I need to remind myself of this, but you know how people say things like, don't just stand there, do something. Well, I sometimes say to people, don't just do something, stand there.
Yeah.
Slow down. You don't need to always be doing, because you might end up finding, as you said earlier, that you kind of achieve the opposite effect of what you intended. That's totally the message of Christmas Vacation. Clark Griswold just builds this up so big that when it crashes down upon him, he loses his mind just about. And it's funny. It's really funny, but it's also kind of dark, and it's kind of a reminder of some of the dilemmas that we live with in the world today.
But don't you think many Christmas, like the very special Christmas episode that you see on TV, or a lot of Christmas media, actually gets and it sounds like you are saying this, gets the message of Christmas exactly backwards. They say the true meaning of Christmas is giving and not receiving, when that is exactly the opposite of what Christmas is about. Christmas is about receiving. It is not about giving. It's secondarily it might be, but its primary meaning is receiving the Lord who comes into this world.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe that's why I think Christmas comedies are particularly good, because I think that comedy inevitably kind of turns norms on their head. Alas, we don't have as much good comedy now as we had even 20 or 30 years ago. But, a Christmas comedy like Christmas Vacation, I think really it turns that paradigm on its head and shows us what we ought to really be thinking about. Another one that's like that is maybe at this point the most popular Christmas movie ever, which is Home Alone, believe it or not. Home Alone was made in 1990, and it is an extraordinarily popular movie. It's very hard to find anybody, not only in the United States, but abroad. A friend of mine who lives in Poland was telling me, he used to live in the Chicago area and moved to Poland. And he told me that when he got to Poland, everyone there was intrigued by the fact that he was from Chicago because of Home Alone, because Home Alone is set in Chicago. And they wanted to visit Chicago so that they could see the Home Alone house. So, it just goes to show you how America's cultural artifacts get exported. But I think Home Alone is a great movie to watch. I think that it really... it really brings up a lot of these important themes about the important message of Christmas. Now, again, they're called the McAllister family. They are presumably Catholics. They're a large family, but we don't see the family, thinking of Christmas in terms of going to mass, of practicing their faith, the kinds of things that we think are important. Nonetheless, there are some really important themes that run through that movie that are very much rooted in our faith. One of the most important ones is the importance of home. Kevin learns to defend what is his. He learns to love where he's from and to believe that it is something worth fighting for, which I think is a strong message to us today in the West, that we have a home that was built by people who knew better than we did and who are maybe in many ways more faithful than we are. And we have a duty. We have a duty to this inheritance. And little Kevin McAllister in the Chicago suburbs kind of lives that out in this hilarious way by hitting robbers with paint cans and stuff like that. But you might remember there's a time in the movie towards the end where he goes to church. He goes into a church. I'm not sure exactly what it is. It's a beautiful building. But he seems to think that that's the kind of place you go to find the inspiration that you need to do the things you're supposed to do. So, it's definitely not a hit you over the head with Christian messaging, but it is a movie that I think is not altogether unedifying for us Christians to watch.
So is it the case nowadays that if it is a hit you over the head with Christian messaging, in some ways it's going to be less successful in conveying the message because people are so well defended against religion?
I think that could be. And I think a lot of people, maybe even believers, might come away just thinking like, that's a little too on the nose. Maybe that's just a little bit, it's too sappy or too, there are definitely cultural, real Christian offerings that do a great job with this. The Chosen is very good, that kind of thing. But there are a lot of things that are marketed in this like specifically Christian category that a lot of people look at and they kind of go, yeah, that's fine. I like the message, but maybe something a little more complex would actually deliver the goods a little better. So, I don't know. We live in this post-Christian age. It would be really nice if we had more overt Christian stuff just kind of baked into normal stuff that didn't have to be put over in another category called Christian. But hey, we make do with what we've got, and we look for the truth where we can find it.
Yeah, but there was a time when you could have like a priest in a movie, Going My Way or Boys. Is that right? Going My Way? Is that the one with Ingrid Bergman?
I believe so.
And Bing Crosby. And the priest could just be a priest. It was an uncomplicated kind of. I think everything has to be so morally complicated now. I actually think that sometimes the people portraying like the flawed hero are actually more morally simplistic than some of these morally uncomplicated movies were. There's a kind of moral kind of dumbness to them.
Yeah, if you see a priest in a movie or in a TV show nowadays, my wife and I joke about this. We watch a lot of British mysteries. If there's ever an Anglican vicar or a Catholic priest, for that matter, in a movie, he's either going to be a bumbling idiot or the murderer. He's going to be one of those two things. He's not going to be a well-rounded human being, probably.
Yeah. Or a series I saw, I think it was on Netflix, where he turned out to be a vampire.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I get it. Father seems like a nice guy, but he's like, that is the most morally simple message. Talk about hitting you over the head with the idea that you can't trust people. Good people are the very people you can't trust.
Right. Yeah. There are some older Christmas movies that I think do a good job with this. One of them is the original Bishop's Wife. I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh, yeah. That's a great movie. Yeah, with Cary Grant, right?
Cary Grant and David Niven.
David Niven, yeah.
David Niven plays an Anglican bishop, so a little different for us as Catholics to see a bishop with a wife. But it is, I think, a really beautiful movie that makes you feel real good to be a Christian at the end.
Yes, exactly. And the problem is the bishop is trying to do something that seems very Christian, but the motivation is entirely not Christian. He needs. I forgot about that movie, The Bishop's Wife. Yeah. Well, first of all, Cary Grant's just a killer in that movie, and he is in a lot of movies. But that the message that there is a way that you can have all the appearances of being Christian without a Christian heart and motivation. I love that movie.
I do too. Yeah, David Niven is trying to build a cathedral. He's trying to raise money to build a cathedral. And if you've ever tried to raise money in the Christian world, you know that it can become kind of an idol. Like you lose sight of you doing things for the glory of God, right? And that's what happens in that movie.
All right, more Christmas movies to come, both the good and the bad, with our guest, Andrew Petiprin, author of Popcorn with the Pope, a guide to the Vatican film list, available now on Amazon and on the Word on Fire website. Right back after this.
Why We're Catholic is the one book you can hand to anyone to invite them into or back to the Catholic faith. With more than 400,000 copies sold, Trent Horn's book has had a #1 ranking on Amazon.com for 5 years running. Now available in softcover, bulk cases, ebook, and on Audible. Find out what the excitement is all about. Order your copies of Why We're Catholic at shop.catholic.com or visit whywearecatholic.com.
Is relativism dead? It sure seems dead. Each day, new moral demands are made, and they are presented to us as absolutes. Everything, from transgender ideology to physician-assisted suicide, is presented as a moral good that all right-thinking people must accept. But Catholic Answer's own Carlo Broussard says look deeper, and you will see today's moralism is just relativism dressed up in new clothes. Carlo's eye-opening book, The New Relativism, shines a light on how the sacred moral teachings of this age cover up a deep denial of moral truth. Order your copy of The New Relativism today at shop.catholic.com and be prepared to defend the truth against aggressive relativism. The New Relativism at shop.catholic.com or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Our Lord needs articulate defenders of the truth to spread the joy of the Catholic faith. Catholic Answers monthly giving club, Society 315, helps you fulfill the call in 1 Peter 3:15 to always be prepared to make a defense for the hope that is in you. For as little as $10 a month, you'll help Catholics grow in faith, bring lapsed Catholics home, and lead non-Catholics to the truth. Go to casociety315.com and join today.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. Having a little bit of fun on this. It's okay to have fun sometimes. We're having a little bit of fun on the day after Thanksgiving here in the U.S. Not every. I don't know if you know this. Our guest is Andrew Petiprin, first of all. And Andrew, I don't know if you know this, but there are countries that don't have Thanksgiving. I have recently visited some of these countries. I don't even know how they live with themselves that they go through the whole year without thanking God by gorging on food.
I know. And, our neighbors to the north up in Canada, no doubt we have some listeners from Canada, they have it on a different day.
Oh, well.
I mean, imagine that. Imagine that.
At least they're giving thanks, though. Yeah. Like, how can you have a whole country go through year after year and not give thanks? I don't know. What do the Canadians eat on Thanksgiving, by the way? Do they eat the same thing we eat, or do they eat good stuff?
I think they eat the same things. Good stuff. I don't know, but I don't think it's as big a deal up in Canada as it is down here. But I might be wrong.
Come on, Canada, get your act together. If you're going to have Thanksgiving, give thanks. Like do it. Really do it. And I know that the people of New Zealand know that I'm talking about them because they don't have a Thanksgiving Day, and we have listeners in New Zealand. And I just want to tell you how much fun it is to give thanks to God. I believe that you as a country should do it. You're a beautiful country. You have lots to give thanks for. And the rest of us are looking at you, New Zealand, about why you don't have a day where you give thanks to God. Moving on with more Christmas movies. That's what we're talking about now with Andrew Petiprin, author of Popcorn with the Pope, a guide to the Vatican film list, which has 45 films on it. We've already established none of them are Elvis Presley films. Does it have the movie It's a Wonderful Life on it?
It absolutely does.
It
yes.
does. It's
And
a Wonderful Life made the Vatican list.
It did. It made the Vatican list.
All right.
And I was privileged to get to write the chapter about that film for our book. I co-authored the book with two other guys, and we divided up the films among us, and I got It's a Wonderful Life, which I was so happy about because It's a Wonderful Life is a really special movie to me. I've always loved it. I love Jimmy Stewart, of course, as an actor, and I really love Frank Capra as a director. He made a lot of very socially conscious movies, like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, You Can't Take It With You, a couple of other movies like that. But I think, and those are great, along with some of his other ones, like Arsenic and Old Lace is great. It Happened One Night, great director. But I think It's a Wonderful Life is his crowning achievement as a we were talking about message movies before. It's a Wonderful Life is not a simplistic message movie by any means. But it is a movie that I think speaks pretty profoundly to our responsibility to each other here in this world, living in community, certainly among brothers and sisters in Christ, and also just our utter dependence upon God that we too often forget. And we just see that so clearly in the character of George Bailey, who at the beginning of the movie, everybody knows the story probably. His business associate, Uncle Billy, loses $8,000, just misplaces it at the bank, and the wicked Mr. Potter finds it and doesn't give it back. George Bailey declares, he takes the rap. He takes responsibility because that's what a man like him does. He's a leader. He knows that that's just what you do, but he's freaking out bad. He's just in the worst way. And he goes to a bar and he says, he prays. He says, but he prays in this funny way that sometimes people pray in the world today, don't they? He starts his prayer by saying, I'm not a praying man. As if kind of like coming to God and saying, like, look, I know I haven't been coming through like I'm supposed to here, God.
Right.
But I really need you to help me out this time.
Yeah.
And
that's
what
funny.
happens-
That's like kind of a movie trope almost. Like, oh, Lord, I don't talk to you very much, but here I am coming to you. God's like, wait, who are you again? No,
Right.
that's not how that
Well,
works.
It's funny though, isn't it, Si? I mean, it's a funny phenomenon in this world that, when you put a person in crisis, suddenly, even if it starts out as something like that, that's kind of almost an insult to people who really do take their prayer lives seriously, it can turn into something that can really turn into a powerful transformation experience, a formation experience in faith for a person.
Sure. Right.
And I think that's kind of what happens to George Bailey. I mean, you don't get to the end of the movie and he's like running off to mass, but he is at least acknowledging the existence of angels, for example, even though the way that the film depicts angels is not what we believe angels are. Angels aren't human beings that, do good things and get their wings. We believe human beings and angels are two separate orders of creation. But hey, in a movie, it's not that big a deal.
So you're saying I'm never going to be an angel?
You're never going to be an angel.
I die, I go to heaven, and I'm still not going to be an angel?
No, but it's better that you're a human, actually. Humans are, Jesus chose to be a human, not an angel, right? So to be a human being fully alive is going to be a wonderful destiny for you rather than being an angel.
All right. I'll take your assurance on that. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah. Well, that's not exactly one of the lessons that we glean from It's a Wonderful Life, but it's something that we can think about. But yeah, It's a Wonderful Life is just such a powerful movie. And, you think about, in a way, it makes me a little bit sad to think that we don't live in, at least here in our context in the United States, some of us live in really great communities where we know our neighbors and we look out for each other, but it's pretty rare. It's pretty rare compared to how it used to be. And what we find in George Bailey's life is he's a man who has looked out for his neighbors his whole life, and he has put them first. He has sacrificed his dreams to go off to foreign lands and build things and to create things and to make a lot of money. And instead, he's settled down. He's married the girl next door. He's had a big family. And it turns out at the end that that's the greatest thing that he could do with his life. Yeah. And, funnily enough, the most pitiful character in that movie, in my opinion, is not even Mr. Potter, who is the kind of wicked money grubber, although he is kind of pitiful. But the really pitiful character in that movie to me is the character of Sam Wainwright, the friend of George Bailey, who has gone off and done actually what George always wanted to do. He's gone off and made a lot of money, and he lives this fancy, flashy life. But at the end of the movie, you realize George is the one with the real wealth. George is the one that this other guy, you wouldn't want that guy's life. You wouldn't want it.
Yeah.
Despite all the hardships that George has had to endure looking out for these people in this little town that everybody else has forgotten, he's got it all. He's absolutely got it all. And when he needs God, God comes through for him. How? Through the people that he has blessed already, in his life. So to me, It's a Wonderful Life. It's as good as it gets. It makes you cry. It makes you laugh. You come away from it, I think, feeling just right about everything.
So often movies can make you feel that your life is small. But it's wonderful that a movie can make you feel that your life is important, that ordinary life is a wonder. I mean, to live an ordinary life, and it is a kind of ordinary to live a life of service. There's a way in which all kinds of extraordinary things won't come to you if your life is a life of service. It's just the most wonderful gift to be given an ordinary life.
It is. And one more thing that I can't help but say this about It's a Wonderful Life. We started by saying that George prays reluctantly for the first time, but more importantly even is the prayers of his wife and of his children and of his community. And what's his wife's name, by the way? Mary. So we have kind of the prayers of Mary are ascending to help this man, which is kind of a beautiful thing. And again, yeah, as you say, it's an ordinary life, but as it happens, yeah, that's the best kind of life. Jesus says to Nicodemus in John chapter 3, Nicodemus is mystified at this language of having to be born again. And Jesus is essentially turning the question back on him like, well, I mean, do you understand how you were born in the first place? The original born, right? Like, do we ever stop and think about that? Like, thank you, God, that I'm here. Like, yeah, and right. All these little things that I don't even understand who knows what little decisions I've made have saved some person's life. And I don't even know anything about that, and like what kind of effect my being here in this world has made. So thank you, God, for putting me here, Right.
What a wonderful movie that makes us feel that way, that makes us feel the truth about ourselves, not have false feelings and false desires kind of implanted in us by envy, but to see the truth about ourselves. What a wonderful, wonderful movie. Oh, It's a Wonderful Life. So this made the Vatican list. I'm very happy to hear that Capra made it.
Yeah, it did make the Vatican list, and yeah, I mean, Frank Capra's other films are worth looking at too. But It's a Wonderful Life has really achieved a status among kind of film goers that very few other films have, and so I'm really glad that the Vatican. Some of the movies on there are movies Americans have never heard of. Some of them are foreign movies, and they're great movies. But I'm really glad that some of the real classics that come from our culture are on there.
Our guest is Andrew Petiprin. We're going to take a very quick break and come back and continue with our Christmas movie extravaganza. I just named it. That's what this hour is going to be, the Christmas movie extravaganza, a very special episode of Catholic Answers Live. Andrew Petiprin, the author of Popcorn with the Pope, a guide to the Vatican film list. Right back with more Christmas movies to talk about right after this.
There's only one Catholic Answers Live.
The Catechism defines evangelization as the proclamation of Christ and His gospel by word and the testimony of life. But what does that look like in real life? It looks like St. Paul street evangelists out in the public square sharing the good news. We're a Catholic nonprofit that starts conversations by handing out free sacramentals. Then we employ our method of listen, befriend, proclaim, and invite. Catholic Answers is supported in part by St. Paul Street Evangelization. Visit streetevangelization.com to learn more.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
I told him about the woman who came to me and said her two children hadn't spoken to each other for 2 years. Their grandma died and she was very wealthy. She left half to each one. She said they're arguing over a commode. She said it's inlaid. Can you imagine being in hell and somebody saying to you, what are you here for?
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Welcome back to the Catholic Answers movie channel. Well, it's actually not the Catholic Answers movie channel. The Catholic Answers Live, but we could have that. We could have the Catholic Answers movie channel. Like, what's that one that the Turner? I think it's Turner. They play all the classic Turner classic movies. And Andrew Petiprin could be our like the guy that introduces the movies and talks. You want to do that? You want that job?
Yeah, that's my dream job, Si. Let's make it happen. Yeah.
Okay, so all we have to do, it's simple. Start a movie network. That's all. That's all we got to do.
Easy peasy.
It doesn't seem that hard. All right, so on the network, you would play Babette's Feast.
Yes.
You would play Die Hard.
Yes.
You would play It's a Wonderful Life.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any that we did today that you wouldn't play? Have we talked about any that? I think you've been positive about film today. You've found a lot of good films to talk about. I don't know if we've rejected any.
I've been trying to be positive. Yeah. I think there's so much to be positive about with great movies. You know, you mentioned before we weren't going to talk about Hallmark movies. And I would say, yeah, we probably wouldn't show those on our film network. I think we would leave those off. We'd show the greats instead.
Yeah, that's true. But I would like to have a late night show where like, oh, you're up late and here's a movie for you to watch, and it would be all Elvis movies. I would just talk about what Elvis was up to, because he made a lot of movies. He was making like 2 or 3 a year there in the 60s. What do you think? I mean, you're the head of the network now, Andrew. Can I have this show or not?
It's yours, Si. Absolutely. Really? We need it. The world needs an Elvis show hosted by you.
There's an Elvis movie where he's a race car driver, and because he's always something. He's a carnival worker in this movie. He's a surfer in this movie. But there's one where he's a race car driver and he's driving and singing, which you'll be surprised to hear that Elvis was driving and singing at the same time, but he was. And he's got a car phone. And it's like a 1967 movie, but it's like, I guess there were car phones that were radios in the old days. I think extraordinarily expensive, but he was a rich race car driver. So he had a car phone. But it did look kind of more radio-ish than car phone-ish, but.
That's interesting. I remember Goldfinger having one of those in the James Bond movie, Goldfinger.
Yeah, and that's a 60s movie, right? Goldfinger? That's an old one.
Yeah.
All right. This century is what are we in, the 21st century now? I guess, we're in the 21st century. Any good Christmas movies that came out of this century?
Yeah, there have been some for sure. One that I think is a lot of fun is the movie Elf, which came out early in the century, 2003. It's directed by Jon Favreau, who's now become more famous for all his Marvel movies.
I never knew that Jon Favreau made that movie.
Yeah, he made that movie.
I love his movies.
Yeah, and here's a factoid about that movie. He's good buddies with Peter Billingsley, who plays Ralphie in A Christmas Story. And Ralphie, Peter Billingsley, has a cameo role in Elf in 2003. So
please tell me where. I don't know where. Do you know where it is? Or
yeah, he's one of the elves. I forget. He has some lines about, I don't know, he tells Santa Claus something. He's in a few scenes though. So
all right. So speaking of people who got famous for doing other stuff, because Jon Favreau, of course, is the director of Iron Man, the first Iron Man, which totally changed the entire movie industry. It's rare that somebody totally changes an industry and that's how good Favreau is. But Peter Dinklage, Peter Dinklage is in this movie in a hilarious thing, and he later went on to be in that dragon show. What's that thing called? Game of Thrones. Yeah. But I've followed Peter Dinklage because ever since he made a movie called The Station Agent, I thought this guy is so good. And then he was in Elf, and the part where he stands on the table and he's like, "Bring it on!" I just love it. It's brilliant.
I love the scene in that movie where he says he wears these like very fancy 3-piece suits. He's a famous children's author, right?
And he's a jerk.
But he's a real jerk, and poor Will Ferrell's character thinks that he's a real elf from back in the North Pole, and he means it in sincerity that he just wants to like greet him as one of his fellow elves, right? But Peter Dinklage takes offense to this, and I love the line where he's trying to like stick up for himself and make himself seem important, and he says that in his homes in Paris, Los Angeles, and Aspen, each of them has a 70-inch plasma screen TV. And I just thought that was a really funny little bit of
it
dialogue.
is. It's very funny, and Peter Dinklage is such a great comedic actor. I mean, I wasn't really a Game of Thrones guy. I don't have HBO, so I don't know about that. But as a comedic actor, he's very, very funny. But I gotta say, Will Ferrell, this is a winning performance. This is real acting. He did a beautiful job in that.
I think so. I mean, it's a silly movie to some degree, but it's a really beautiful movie. I mean, like a lot of Christmas movies, there's kind of a blend of campiness and sincerity, and you got to get that blend right. But Elf totally does. I mean, it's a movie. It's a classic homecoming tale, which is a common theme in a Christmas movie about a man who, has lived this other life, and he decides that he's going to be who he really is. He's not an elf. He's a human, and he's going to seek out his real family, his place of origin, as it were. And when he gets there, he's met with resistance, but ultimately it all works out for the good. And I just think it's a really touching movie. And Will Smith just does a brilliant job kind of blending that sweetness, that sincerity, and just that totally bonkers silliness. Elf has really become one of those movies that is now in the lineup for the must-see every year, I think, in most families.
Well, you sometimes get the feeling that some people are trying to make a movie that'll make it into the Christmas pantheon, that'll become an annual watch. And then you can see that, they didn't quite, that's not going to be in the annual rotation. That's not going to be a Turner Classic. But with Elf, instant classic.
Yeah. Yeah. There's another one that I like from this century around the same time called About a Boy, which is probably a little less well known than Elf, to be sure. But it stars Hugh Grant as this sort of rich but useless man who, he's really trying to defy the wisdom of the poet John Donne, who said, "No man is an island." He's trying to be an island. He doesn't want connection with other human beings. He just wants to kind of enjoy his money and not get involved and be, not get married. He just wants to have casual relationships with women and just kind of live in front of his TV set and drink and play games and that sort of thing. But a boy comes into his life, played by the actor Nicholas Hoult, who's been now in many, many things. And this was his breakthrough role as a child actor. And it's about a man who, in like a lot of these Christmas movies, a man who learns the real meaning of life, the real important stuff. And it's got a beautiful soundtrack by the musician who, it's just one man, but his band is called Badly Drawn Boy. And it's got these very, very memorable songs that run throughout the movie. So About a Boy is one of those movies that my family and I like to watch most years. It's very touching.
And why is it a Christmas movie?
Oh, sorry, because it's set at Christmas, and it sort of begins and ends with Christmas. And one of the important plot details, or one of the character details about this man that Hugh Grant plays, is that he's gotten his fortune from the fact that his father was a songwriter who wrote a one-hit wonder Christmas song called Santa's Super Sleigh. So he lives his life hating Christmas because everywhere he goes at Christmas time, this stupid jingle that his father wrote, this jingle that is financing this good-for-nothing layabout life, by the way, but is playing everywhere. So he decides, and he didn't have a good relationship with his father. So part of the movie is sort of about him coming to love Christmas and make his peace with, the hurt of his past with his father.
There is a kind of a theme that runs through some Christmas movies about overcoming hurts of the past, and you can kind of understand that because Christmas is the natural time for people to come back together, but also to, even now, I think Christmas in a very secularized society. I mean, even if you went to a very secularized place like New Zealand, where they don't even have a day to thank God, there's a way in which Christmas it still has a religious resonance to it. Even where it's not celebrated religiously, it's still. Am I right about that or wrong about that?
I think that's absolutely right. I think a Christmas movie that doesn't contain that theme isn't going to be successful as well. That's something side that I think about a lot when I'm processing the importance of new media. That we are a post-Christian society, but we have these marks that aren't going to go away that easily. And I think that for us as Catholics and as evangelists, as apologists, it's really important to identify those. And I think what you're saying about Christmas as this occasion where even if we're not believing Christians or practicing Catholics, these things are going to present themselves to us and possibly create a kind of crisis point or decision point in a person's life where they may turn to the deeper meaning. And, so I think with a lot of these films that we've been discussing, even if they're totally secular, certainly to a believer, we come away thinking about the important things, and hopefully non-believers might as well. There's power there in these marks that can't just be rubbed off so easily.
I hope that that is the case. Thank you very much. Are there any more Christmas movies that you want to mention before I move on? Because I am going to move on, but I want to give you the chance to, avoid angry letters from people who are like, Andrew didn't mention,
Well, there are a couple of things that ought to be mentioned. One is, of course, Charlie Brown Christmas, which has just the most, every year it kills me.
Me too.
When you get to the end and Linus shares the
Gospel of Luke.
Yeah. And then it ends with Hark the Herald Angels Sing, which, by the way, also is the final song in It's a Wonderful Life, which is just a beautiful hymn, a Wesley hymn. So not written by a Catholic, but has just a beautiful theology of angels.
Can I just stop you right there? A lot of the best hymns were not written by Catholics.
Well, as a convert to Catholicism, I can attest to that myself.
Yeah, I mean, there are great Catholic hymns. I'm not saying, but there are a lot of great hymns that were not written by Catholics.
Yeah, and Charles Wesley maybe was the greatest non-Catholic hymn writer of all, and Hark the Herald Angels Sing is one of his, and so it's so beautiful that the Charlie Brown Christmas ends with that. So I love that. I love different adaptations of a Christmas Carol as well. The Charles Dickens.
Right,
story.
Yeah.
There are a lot of good ones. The Muppet Christmas Carol is really wonderful.
Did you just recommend the Muppet Christmas Carol?
Muppet
Good
Christmas
Lord,
Carol.
we are going low brow today. All right.
No. The Muppets are great, and Muppet Christmas Carol is one of the best. I love it.
All right. What about the George C. Scott one? You like that one?
That's a good one. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good one. The Alistair Sim one is really good. And there have been many, many adaptations. I have to admit, this one is a little rough around the edges, but I really love the Bill Murray movie Scrooged as well, which is a kind of modern day adaptation of a Christmas Carol.
That's funny. I've been wondering this hour whether you were going to mention Scrooge. I wasn't going to bring it up because I couldn't remember. Is it objectionable in any way? But
a little bit here and there, but. Yeah, but I like it. It's got a really beautiful, heartwarming ending. So yeah, I try to include that in my rotation most Christmases.
Well, let me ask you this before we leave, and maybe we'll do a New Year's show with you. But any movies coming out that you're looking forward to? Anything coming up where you're like, I'm really looking forward to seeing this?
Well, the big one of the year. Now, some of the film, the industry has slowed down a little bit because of the actors' strike and the writers' strike that has occurred this year. But the big movie of the year is Ridley Scott's Napoleon movie.
Oh.
He's made a biopic of Napoleon starring Joaquin Phoenix as Napoleon. So Ridley Scott, a lot of our listeners will know him from movies like Gladiator. He's movies like Blade Runner. He's just one of the big movie directors kind of our times. And he doesn't make a lot of movies, but he makes really big ones when he does. And for one, I love history. I'm fascinated by the person of Napoleon and kind of that historical era in Europe. So I'm definitely looking forward to that one. That's maybe the biggest one that's on my must-watch list.
Oh, that makes me happy because I wrote a long article about Napoleon because the movie's coming out for the Catholic Answers magazine online. So just go to Catholic.com, go to the magazine, click it, and you can read my article about Napoleon and his relationship with Pope Pius. Hey, there's a book out right now that you might want to give to somebody. It's called Popcorn with the Pope, A Guide to the Vatican Film List. You can get it at Amazon. You can get it at the Word on Fire website. Get it for that Catholic film lover. And our guest today is one of the three authors of the book, Andrew Petiprin. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed spending the day after Thanksgiving talking about movies with you.
Me too, Cy. Let's do it again.
All right, let's do it. We'll have to talk about Dune when that comes out and all the other big movies. I'll do it for us. See you next time, God willing, right here on Catholic Answers Live.